They are just giving money away, and I would love you to be one of the people to get all that money. The government continues to give away billions of dollars to everybody, and I wish it was me, to be honest with you. Let's take a look at the first story of today because there's a lot of levels. The Trudeau government in Canada is giving Volkswagen $13 billion with a B, 13 billion for a subsidy for a battery plant. Now, this is happening in Ontario. So we like seeing business come into Ontario, but the Canadian Taxpayers Federation obviously is urging the federal opposition parties to decline the $13 billion payment that they're giving to them. So this is going to happen in St. Thomas, Ontario. A lot of you may not have heard about St. Thomas. It's about 2 hours away from Detroit, but it's kind of in the middle of Toronto and Detroit. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Land is pretty cheap. So in this type of place, there's a lot of farming that goes on, a lot of land. Now, they are saying taxpayers don't have $13 billion just to give away to a multinational corporation, according to the federal director. Now, this plant that they're building only costs $7 billion. So this is where you start scratching your head a little bit and you're like, how is it that they're giving away $13 billion for a plant that only costs $7 billion to build? Listen, I'm scratching my head for that one as well. I can't come up with an answer for that. And so you have to ask yourself, how is this make any sense whatsoever? So in this article, they're saying there was 8,000 jobs that they're giving. But as we dig into it a little bit more, we find out that there's only 3,000 people. But they're telling us, guys, there will be spin-off jobs. We'll get to that in a second. So the government is, embroiled in always different types of negotiations, but, our prime minister doesn't really do as much. It's usually the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland. And so she is saying, the federal government is offering money. They're trying to save money where they could. They don't want to burden the treasury with unnecessary high wage costs. Of course, this is for different unions that they're fighting right now. And it says the hardworking people of Canada have to pay for this. And then it says, Freeland says that there's only a finite amount of money to go around, and Ottawa needs the money for other measures. The question is that other measure giving away $13 billion to a foreign company from Germany? So it is important that the government be thoughtful about our spending, Freeland says, on the spending on operations of the government. My question again comes back, is that $13 billion? So for the United States, they throw around where they're always talking about trillions of dollars that is going over in interest and stuff. But in Canada, we're only 37 million people. For us to spend 13 billion on something, it is a massive price, especially that you're paying double the price of what it costs to even build. So we're not even talking about incentives. So a lot of people, this doesn't matter. This happens in Europe. It happens in Australia, it happens in everywhere. And this isn't right or left. It isn't political, because every different government that comes in has the same type of shady dealings that are going on. But I know that they're saying jobs are important. Jobs are important. So it made me think about this for a second. And I wanted to find out, well, how much is it worth for us to pay for a job? So I did some math. 13 billion with a B, I can't even imagine that much money, divided by 3,000 jobs comes out to $4.3 million for a job. 4 million for one job. Okay. So I got to tell you, the government would be better just to give him 4 million to that one dude that's going to get a job, and he is going to party like a rock star that just won the lottery. Okay. And so we also hear, well, spin-off jobs, David, spin-off jobs. What are those? Well, in the city, you're going to have dry cleaners, pizza shops, restaurants. You're going to have people buying boats and RVs because they have jobs. They're going to have home cleaners and everything else. Guys, if the government came down and dropped $4.3 million into 3,000 people's accounts, do you not think that they would go and spend that money anyway? They would all go out to restaurants more and buy the RVs and buy everything as well, right? So the spin-off jobs are going to happen regardless if you dump $13 billion into one economy, right? I think that the Germans are making off like bandits with this deal, to be honest, but I don't blame them. I really don't, because if you offered me this deal, I would take it. If you want to give me your 13 billion, I'll take it. Why not? All right, but here's the thing. They always say that we're going to invest money. They always use this word invest. But if we, you, me, a company, a country, if we invest, we expect a profit, my friends. If you do not get a profit, it is not an investment. So we cannot mix up those words. And when we're giving 13 billion away for a $7 billion plant, we cannot help but call this corporate welfare. Now, is this the unique case? No. This happens, like I said, Australia, Europe, it happens in every other country. And if we go to countries that are a little bit more dodgy, and I don't want to name names, but developing countries, now all of a sudden, this is just the way it goes. There's a lot of glad handing and behind closed doors. There's a lot of shady deals that go on, right? So this is nothing new. And this is the argument that everyone says as well. David, it's better here than in other countries. And I'm like, well, is it? We don't know. But my other question is it ever right? It's not that, well, it's worse in one country than this country. It's always dodgy. It shouldn't be that way. And we call that pork barrel spending, where we're using that money just to grease the wheels of all the politicians. Is that cool? But now comes the second part, not being happy about it, is when we're going to be talking about electric. This is for battery cars. And so we know that today, the biggest topic that we hear today is battery cars, battery cars. It's the best thing on the planet, right? It's going to save the earth. And so this is the chart that I always see, is that if you have a gas car, this gas car over its life is going to continue to get fueled up with gas. And over its lifetime, I think it was something like 30 tons of CO2 that it's going to put in the air. 30 tons. And I mean, that's a lot, man. That's really bad. And when you look at electric cars, go up very, very, very slowly until the time that it's burnt out and get rid of it. Maybe it's only 5 tons, I think it was. And the reason why it has any is because most people are going to say, well, David, electric cars only take electricity. There is no carbon coming out of the car. But that's where I always have to stop you. Where do you think that the electricity comes from? Because like Germany, we're shutting down all the nuclear plants, right? We're getting rid of that. Now, the majority of the places that make electricity are using coal or natural gas to make the electricity so that you don't burn coal. So it's really good for the driver of the electric car. When he looks in his rearview mirror and sees no exhaust, he can feel really good about himself. But we didn't necessarily stop the carbon. We just relocated it so you didn't have to see it. That's the first thing. All right. So here is the other problem that I want you just to consider. So if this was the only chart, I would say you're right. But here is the problem. In order to make an electric car, we have to spend an enormous amount of carbon, 40 tons, in order to build an electric car. But it will only take something like 6 tons to build a gas car. So the real number here, the gas car that is being made starts off in the world making way less carbon than the electric car. And why is that? Well, we have to mine out of the ground with diesel engines all of this lithium, all of this cobalt, all of these materials that the gas car doesn't use, and it comes on way stronger. We have to put off a carbon bomb in order to get all of this stuff. They now have these collectors that are running on the bottom of the ocean, collecting all the rock. Think of the downstream effects of that. So electric car starts off day one when it's born, creating way more carbon than the gas car. But the gas car will catch up to it. So this is my thing. Everybody wants to get into 2 camps. They want to say you're either a climate denier or you're a climate activist. And my answer is, why can we not be somewhere in the middle? There's nobody that can, I think, argue that climate change isn't a thing. And so I grew up in Montreal, Canada, and I used to wake up in the morning and my car was gone. It was buried under snow. I could not even see the roof. Dig the whole thing out. And, I was younger. The snow was up to here on me. So now there's no snow. I used to spend all my springs, always the 3rd week of May, fishing. The lakes used to be frozen, and now it's 25 degrees. I don't think that we can actually rationally sit and say the world hasn't heated up. We have to know that. And I want there to be huge investment in cleaner energy that is possible for people, because every single time that we've had a breakthrough of energy, the world has become infinitely better. Think of when we learned to harness horses, and now that we could now plow massive amounts of field to get more food. Amazing. Then we discovered coal, and we could put coal in these trains, and these beasts started conquering the world, right? These trains going everywhere. Amazing. We could transport huge things. Mankind is incredible. And then we started learning how to use fossil fuels, right? We need another source, but we can't spend all of this carbon and money just to get batteries out in order to burn coal over here to make electricity to charge it. Doesn't make any sense. We need something. So when I read this stuff, like over in Switzerland where they have that collider, and they're trying to have this stuff. What was it last year? They put this electricity into this little metal toothpick that is inside this little jar. They got more electricity out of it than they put in, like the temperature of the surface of the sun for a millisecond. I mean, this is some cool stuff. I love this type of stuff. So I just wish that instead of spending all of this money, and I'm not pointing at one government, I'm not pointing at one place, I'm not pointing at one government, one country, I'm talking Europe, everywhere. We really want it, but we're putting their money in the wrong places. Because if we know that something does not work financially, example, okay, exhibit A, or if we know that we're paying more money for it, exhibit A, right, and it's not working, then what are we doing? Now, I'm wondering if you put $13 billion into this tech that could either pull the carbon out of the air or create energy, another hadron collider type of thing, get the world's best physicists working on this thing, what could we accomplish? Because if we could solve that, then we're like killing two birds with one stone. My dream is that we have a company that could suck the carbon out of the air. Brilliant. And then make houses with that in like a cement with a 3D printer. We solve all the world's problems altogether. Energy and housing. Oh my goodness. The world is your oyster after that. Anyway, this is just what I want you to think about all the time. We're not political here. It's never one party or the other because every party is always doing the same thing. They always mudsling back and forth, but we never want to be that way. We just want to think about things rationally and come up to good decisions. And we always have to think about the next generations that are coming along, and they're going to point the finger at us and say, well, what did you do? And so I always want our governments to do better. I want us to do better, our families to do better, because if we are more proactive than reactive, then we win. And out of the thousands of years of human history, we always see that the people who are proactive, people, families, communities, cities, countries, doesn't matter. They always win. The people who are reactive lose. And that is very, very, very standard everywhere you go. So I want me and you to be able to look at this and be able to make smart investment opportunities for our future. I really think that the next few years, we're going to be starting to see things that we've never seen before in our lifetime. And it's going to offer us some fantastic opportunities. So I'm super excited to be living in this time. I know some people can be very, very pessimistic, but I think that we have such amazing opportunities coming in the next couple of years that I'm super giddy about it. I'm super excited about it. And I hope that you are too. If this helps you at all, guys, please consider liking and subscribing to it. And I'll talk to you on the next video. Have a good day.